Well, good morning, Peachtree Corners. Come to you today again to discuss some of the activity within our fair city, specifically as it relates to how we are reacting to the pandemic that we're all currently dealing with, and our separation is in place to try to prevent the spread. We have had an eventful last couple of days since I last discussed things with you, and by eventful it's mostly because of an executive order issued by the governor of Georgia and what that executive order does to those of us who live work here in the city. So let me review so that everybody understands what I'm talking about. So 2 days ago, there was a press conference in which Governor Kemp announced that he was going to issue a statewide shelter-in-place order. That order is going to go into effect at 6 p.m. today, and it will continue through midnight on Monday, April 13, unless, of course, it is extended by either the public health state of emergency Georgia has or another executive order is issued by the governor. It was yesterday early evening where the details of this shelter-in-place order came out, and I will tell you that there is a lot of interpretation that is attempting to be done right now as far as what it means, and what it means in general, and what it means specifically to the city itself. And what we all had come to understand were the restrictions by the city's own executive order, and then what it's going to mean with the governor. So a couple things to keep in mind. First is this executive order does supersede Peachtree Corners executive order. All of our ordinances, any restrictions we had or anything are superseded by the governor's. And so we, unless of course ours mirrors exactly his. And so that means, of course, then that the governor's executive order is the law of the land at 6 o'clock today. Now, prior to that, the city's executive order is still in place. So if you have any questions, like you have been doing before, you can either call a number of places at, or numbers at City Hall that are listed on our website. You can send an email to info@peachtreecornersga.gov, or send it directly to certain individuals if you know specifically who you need to talk to. But our executive order is still in place through 6 p.m. But at 6 p.m. tonight, the governors will go into effect, and the governor's executive order kind of breaks things down differently than it did when the city did ours. We kind of actually really tried to keep it simple and have two categories of businesses: essential and non-essential. And you were on the list. You were on one of those two lists. And of course, once we issued the order, really it was just a matter of trying to figure out in some cases which list a company went on, but it was as simple as that. The governor's executive order is not quite as simple, and I do want to urge you to stay tuned, because as we and other cities in the state are wrapping our minds around what the governor's means, there's going to be some more to follow. So just understand that what I'm telling you is what we know at this point. So the governor's executive order kind of broke things down into three kinds of businesses. One is there are the forbidden businesses. And those businesses are very similar to what we had before. It is closing and ceasing operations in bars, nightclubs, gyms, fitness centers, bowling alleys, theaters, live performance venues, amusement parks, dine-in services at restaurants, estheticians, hair designers, body art, beauty shops and salons, barber shops, cosmetology, licensed massage therapists. Those are on the list of businesses that are to cease operation. Then the second category would be critical infrastructure. And critical infrastructure is if your business, critical infrastructure is another list, not too dissimilar to the cities in that it was things that we had before about governmental operations and construction and those kind of things. And again, all of this information will be on our website here shortly. There's a longer list in the governor's case than ours because he is using one that comes from the, I believe it's Department of Homeland Security that came up with an essential critical infrastructure workforce list. And it's got a lot of stuff in there broken under a lot of categories from healthcare to energy to construction to whatever. But yeah, it's it's the Department of Homeland Security came up with the list. So, the essential activities not too dissimilar, but then the kicker tends to be the last part, which is the minimum, the third category, which is everyone else. And everyone else can be open as long as they are part of the minimum basic operations, which says the minimum necessary activities to maintain the value of a business, establishment, corporation, nonprofit corporation, or organization, provide service, manage inventory, ensure security, process payroll and employee benefits, or for related functions. Such minimum necessary activities include remaining open to the public, subject to the restrictions of this order. And so what we're having a hard time understanding is it's almost like that would allow any business to do anything under the auspices of providing services or maintaining the value of a business. And so, where we're struggling, and I know that the state will be tightening up the shot group on this soon, but as it reads, or at least as some people are interpreting it, it's that any business or establishment or organization could operate under this minimum basic operation category and remain open to the public and provide services, because like selling shoes is a service. And as a result, can a shoe store stay open? Because under the or a fitness trainer is not a gym. So could that individual do things? What about, furniture store or an office building? I mean, a vape shop. I mean, church services you get into. And so that really is wherein lies the confusion here, is that last category, which is the main departure from what we had. We had not had a category in which somebody could make a claim that they're providing that service, and as a result, or maintaining value, and as a result, they get to stay open. So I urge you to, do a couple things. Be patient. First of all, this doesn't go into effect until 6 p.m. So between now and 6 p.m., the state could certainly publish some additional guidance on the governor's executive order. Second of all, this unprecedented time we live in does create, a lot of opportunities for things to be pushed out in the interest of time, but they're not necessarily as clear as in a normal world we would like to have it before it gets out. So be patient with that. There are a lot of smart people working on this, a lot of smart people representing local governments in the state, telling the state of Georgia how this is creating some confusion. I do know that We would like, and it has been officially asked of the governor, if his executive order could be considered a floor and allow local governments to add to that, not make it any less restrictive, but potentially add more restrictions. I do know as a, I'm not necessarily objective here as a city manager, but I do know that I prefer, and my staff prefers things done at the local level just because we know it better. When we're the ones that wrote it, we're in a better position to interpret it, and we're in a better position to enforce it when we were a part of the creation and architecture of some of these local laws. And so I wish I could tell you a little bit more than I have been able to right now, but I know people are working on this to get some clarity, and we will get it out on our website as soon as we get it. And I do want to talk about a couple more things, and then I want to end on a good note story. Do understand that when this does go into effect, that there are the governor did create his executive order. If you violate it, it is akin to committing a misdemeanor, which, as you know, is a crime in the state of Georgia. So you are going to see, the law enforcement of some level be in a position to enforce it. That remaining confusion is we're not sure if the governor's order ultimately deputized local law enforcement such that you could have our police department or county sheriffs or others to enforce it. It may end up being state level law enforcement like the Georgia Bureau of Investigation or the Highway Patrol level. There has been talk about there being other state agencies deputized. So at the end of the day, right now, as we understand it, there's a couple things. If you have a question and we don't know the answer after 6 p.m. today, the governor, the office of the governor does have a constituent services department in which you can call. That number is 404-656-1776. If you have any specific questions, because again, at 6 p.m., the city is no longer in a position to either make interpretations of the executive order or to enforce it unless some things change. Second thing is for an interpretation of whether a business is essential, critical workforce or not. Those questions are supposed to be directed to the Georgia Department of Economic Development. Their number is 404-962-4000. And then the last thing is for enforcement of it, it would either be the state's Homeland Security Agency or the Georgia Emergency Management Agency. And their number is 404-635-7000. They would be the one to tell you who would be enforcing it and whether some enforcement mechanism needs to go out to investigate possible violations of this order. So again, a lot of moving parts right now. I do know that this was all done in the interest of stopping the spread of COVID-19. And for those who live in Peachtree Corners or work in Peachtree Corners, at the end of the day, you're probably seeing this right now before there might be any change as being slightly less restrictive than ours, slightly. And so I think the good thing is we probably have all gotten to a point where we're, used to these restrictions versus us having not had any. And now all of a sudden this hit and we're all like, So that's good. I think mostly as the city's code enforcement department and my officers have been going around looking at the landscape within the city, that 99% of the people in the city are doing the right thing. They're maintaining the social distance of 6 feet, and the non-essential businesses are closed, and the ones that are essential are doing so in a way that is again, keeping with the guidelines set forth with preventing the spread of this virus. So for that, we thank you. Keep up what you've been doing. And as the governor's executive order gets a little bit more clarity to it, we will be putting it out on the website and trying to help you adhere to it, just like we're trying to do the same thing. Lastly, I do want to end on a really positive note, and that is, we keep using the term like unprecedented times, and as a community, what we're doing to get through this. And when we've essentially had everything that would ever attract us to leave the house taken away from us. There's not a whole lot of things to do, which is good if you're trying to keep people from interacting. But, as this has happened, the community here in Peachtree Corners has really pulled together and has come up with some pretty unique ways to get through it. I know that in the neighborhood I live in, one of the gentlemen in our neighborhood, a guy named Kevin Hilson, has actually organized video teleconference book readings for the kids in the neighborhood who know each other, who normally would be playing with each other, which is cool. And again, people are just thinking of ways to stay connected but yet maintain the distance. And so it's really cool to see those kind of things happening. It's also equally cool, maybe even cooler, to see people step up for those who are in need. And one of the ones I'd like to highlight is, most of us know this restaurant and the owner. It's Taqueria Del Mar, owned by Andrew Hoppin. Andrew has run a really cool establishment for a long time. There's a lot of us who consider that one of our go-to places when it comes to food. But Andrew, like all other small restaurants, is struggling with getting through this while he's been, forced to eliminate dine-in and has had to, let some people go. And as less people have frequented his establishments, there's a lot of ways he could have dealt with that. But one of the things, he's done a couple of things to address it. One is he has really gotten creative in how he has operated his takeout and curbside service. But I'm going to spare you that because there's two other things that I really want to shine a light on. One is, because there are a lot of people who are struggling, and in some cases so much that they don't really know how they're going to eat their next meal or pay for it, he initiated a pay what you can program at his restaurant. Back in mid-March. So for those who need a meal but can't pay for it, he will accept pay what you can. And for those who like to pay it forward, he would accept paying more for that next person who can't. And, on his own accord did that and has really helped out a lot of people. But in addition to that, he has been taking his food, and whether it's extra or he does it by design, he and his team that he's still employing are packaging up food items and donating it to healthcare workers and senior citizens so they don't have to leave their home. So he's taken orders of like tacos to the ERs in local hospitals and given it to the healthcare workers that are working those shifts so they can eat. He's actually been taking meals to the elderly, especially ones that are either have mobility issues or are very, worried about their condition so they don't have to interact, and taking and donating it. And so, for every time that we talk about this, the things that we can't do, and we're bemoaning, how it's affecting us, it is pretty cool to see people, companies, organizations step up and, make lemonade out of lemons, as we like to say. So thank you to guys like Kevin Hilson who are making, having small children and that just a little bit easier. And thank you for people like Andrew Hoppin who are, taking a difficult time for him and his business, and instead of just crying in his, crying over spilled milk, no pun intended with the food reference, but instead of doing that, he's actually providing something to the community. So thank you for that. Thanks for making Peachtree Corners the great community that it is. I'm proud to work for the city, proud to live here, proud to play. My kids go to school here, and I couldn't be prouder of knowing these people and being a part of it. So let's hang in there. Stay tuned for more. Check out our website. As we learn things, you will too. And let's all get through this together. Thanks for your time, and we'll be in touch very soon.